Hello, everybody. Just so you know, you can actually join me for an episode on this podcast by going to ajconsultingcompany.com. This is a unique podcast where I work hard to give you pristine audio quality and create the #1 DNA podcast in the world. You can also choose to do, of course, a confidential DNA analysis over at ajconsultingcompany.com. All you need is your 23andMe data. So I hope you check it out. Now, a little bit about me. I am a Mayo Clinic scientist. I obviously run AJ Consulting Company. I'm an author. I also have 2 YouTube channels. One is called Anthony J Cast, where I focus on scientific content. And the other channel is called Anthony J Family Cast, where I literally cast fishing lines and I film various outdoor adventures, mostly adventures of my kids. Anyway, so today I talked to Vanda, a chiropractor from South Carolina. We had a great conversation. Initially, she was a little bit quiet because, of course, she's not used to doing podcasts. Who is? But after a while, she warmed up to the conversation, and it was really, really interesting and really fun and enjoyable. Hormones were definitely the main theme. So if you're interested in hormone optimization and things like that, that was the big focus, I think, here. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Thanks for listening.
Hello?
Hello, Vanda, Dr. J.
Oh, hey.
You ready to talk?
Yeah. I had my phone
okay.
on. I'm sorry. I had my phone on silent. So I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh, there you go.
Yep. I've got the recorder going and everything.
Oh, perfect. That's what I was going to ask. I have that Florida phone number, so it kind of tricks people sometimes also. Because I live in Minnesota now, but I kept the number from when I lived in Florida.
Oh, okay.
And you're on Eastern time zone? You're
Yes,
South Carolina?
I'm South Carolina.
Perfect. Good. Anywhere near the ocean or
No, near the mountains.
Pretty far up?
No, yeah.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I have some friends from Greenville. And
Oh,
I've
that's
been up
me.
there a few times. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's a super nice area. Say when I lived in Florida, I used to drive up there and I would go to whitewater rafting, I guess, and kind of up further up there, and then go camping, like Chattahoochee and things like that. Just different adventures up in there. Yeah.
Nice.
So how are you doing?
Good. A little nervous, but I'm excited.
And you got the DNA report?
I do.
Good. So we'll obviously just go through that. And let's see, struggle with carbs. You're mainly concerned, I mean, everybody struggles with carbs, right? They're addictive. Mainly concerned about brain health. Does Alzheimer's run in your family or something?
No.
Okay.
I think it's just the whole going through menopause, brain fog, I'm forgetting things.
Sure.
I'm worried.
If you open the PDF, you'll notice the first section is brain optimization.
Yes.
And right off the bat, we have a long list of potential Alzheimer's risk genes, and you don't have any of them, which is really, really good. Good. Most people do have at least some here and there in that section. The only caveat, you did your DNA with Ancestry,
correct?
Right? Not 23andMe?
Yes, Ancestry.
Yeah, the only caveat is 23andMe, they detect a gene called ApoE4. It's APOE and then the number 4, whereas Ancestry does not have that gene. So that's the only caveat is, sometimes there is one Alzheimer's risk gene that you don't get checked when you do Ancestry. That's my only issue with it. But if it doesn't run in your family, I'd be surprised if you have that one. I mean, you don't have any other ones, and that's really good. But just so you know, there is always that one gene. And the best solution I know of for that gene, if you happen to have it, is triglyceride fish oil. Like a really good high quality fish oil. So you could always just take that as a precaution, and I recommend fish oil in your case anyways because of your joints, just to protect your joints, which we'll talk about later. But again, super good in this section. So the first gene that actually comes up is a stress related gene. But before we talk about that, I just want to make sure to give a little bit of background. And the background is we all have 2 copies of DNA in every cell in our body except egg and sperm cells. Egg and sperm cells only have 1 copy of DNA. So when they fuse together, that's where you get the copy of DNA from your mother and the copy from your father. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's also where you get these plus pluses and plus minuses on this report. So that first gene you see OXTR, That's your oxytocin receptor, and that's a plus plus, meaning generally on this report, when you see these plus pluses, that means you got a bad version of a gene from your mother and a bad version of that gene from your father. It's not always true. Sometimes plus plus, just means an interesting gene or a noteworthy gene or something, but generally I'm looking for bad genes because, everybody has thousands of good genes and everybody has dozens of bad genes, and I just want to find the bad ones. We could talk all day about good ones, good genes, but it wouldn't really help us solve any problems. So this first gene, oxytocin, it indicates your brain is less able to deal with stress based on the oxytocin receptor. So anything that increases oxytocin is especially beneficial in situations that might be stressful or prior to situations that might be stressful. Dark chocolate's a good example. That increases oxytocin. Warm showers, another example. There's a lot of different things. In fact, I linked that article there with over 30 different ways to naturally increase your oxytocin. So you have a long list of options, but they should help.
Okay.
All right, and anxiety, you have a couple anxiety genes. One is related to serotonin. These are pretty common. So SLC6A4, that's a gene involved in the transport of serotonin from your lower body up into your brain. So 90% of your serotonin is made in your brain, and then it has to get transported up, 90% is made in your gut, and then it has to get transported up into your brain. So if you're not transporting it as well, you have to be dialed in. Your gut has to be dialed in because so much of it is made in your gut. And so usually if you just have a really healthy gut, this gene isn't too much of an issue, but it's tough. It's challenging to have a healthy gut these days, right, with all the pesticides and chemicals and all the issues. Now you have exceptional gut genes. I mean, do you have any issues with bloating and gut health and anything like that, or not really?
Historically, no, but recently, yes. I've been trying to experiment with different diets, doing keto, and I'm just kind of getting a little bit of bloating. But normally, I always say I got a stomach of iron because I can eat anything.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Yeah. Because I scrolled ahead and looked at your gut health genes, and they're exceptional. So that's usually what I hear when people have exceptional gut genes. They say they have a stomach of iron. It's like the exact thing. So that's good. It's probably hormone related, which of course we'll talk about in the hormone section. But I mean, do you get bloating when you do keto, or do you get bloating when you switch from keto to carnivore?
Well,
which ones?
Well, I started to do, I was making a lot of recipes with almond flour and coconut flour, and I was eating a lot of it. And so I just thought, well, maybe that's not for me.
Yeah, that's probably a good thought. I mean, I think they have salicylates. For some reason I feel like I'm pronouncing that wrong, but like sialic acid is in coconut oil and probably in almond flour. I know for sure, or not coconut oil, but the coconut powder and the coconut flour. And that a lot of people are sensitive to that if they eat a ton of it.
Okay.
But, again, you have an advantage with your gut genes, so I doubt the gut anxiety connection is that big of an issue for you. Caffeine, on the other hand, do you drink caffeine?
I don't drink coffee, but I do make my Starbucks daily runs, and I have like a chai latte, which I think there's caffeine in there, and a lot of sugar.
Sure. Right, the sugar. Yeah, I mean, I'd be more worried about the sugar, but the caffeine, thankfully, I mean, number one, if you go to the next page, you're metabolize caffeine pretty good. It's not terrible. It stays in your body a little bit longer, but you're not you don't burn caffeine really quick. It doesn't stay in your body super long. You're kind of intermediate there. But you do have a plus anxiety gene from caffeine. It's related to caffeine consumption, giving you anxiety. And so I'd be careful with caffeine for that perspective, just because, nobody wants extra anxiety in their life. And that one's pretty easy to control. So I'm glad you're not a big coffee addict.
No, I've never drank coffee. I like the smell of coffee, but I don't like the taste. I tried it once and I thought it was bitter, and I never drink coffee. No, never have.
Good. Okay. Yeah, tea is less of an issue there because number one, it has a lot less caffeine, and then number two, it has theophylline and theobromine and some of these other compounds that they kind of bring you up slower and they bring you down slower, so you don't shoot up really fast on this caffeine high and then you crash out. That's the beauty of tea. It's generally better for that.
Okay.
Last gene in this brain section is the lifespan gene, sirtuin. SIRT1 is the abbreviation. And that one's associated with decreased lifespan because you make less sirtuin, but it's pretty easy to fix because you can easily tell your body to make more sirtuin if you supplement grapeseed proanthocyanidins. And I know the word is kind of goofy.
Yeah, that's
and
a mouthful.
Nobody talks about it. Yeah. But usually if you get grapeseed extract, it'll be about 50% proanthocyanidins and 50% resveratrol. And the problem with resveratrol is it acts like estrogen if you take a really high dose. So in your case, I probably would avoid it because you have some estrogen gene issues that we'll talk about later. And it's better just to avoid tampering with your natural levels there. I would just take the proanthocyanidins because, again, they increase sirtuin. Having more sirtuin, especially in animal models where they can actually manipulate these things, it's definitely associated with increased lifespan.
Okay.
But other than that, I mean, really good overall in the brain section.
Oh, good. Because I was really concerned about that.
Now, like I say, sometimes the brain genes are really good, but then the hormone genes are off a little bit, and that can alter your brain function. Sometimes you just need to do it like a 3-day fast, a water fast, or something like that to get your body off the carb addiction. Because carbs, they can be addictive, number one, but then also your brain gets pretty dependent on them, and you want to switch your brain over to ketones for a little bit. Things like that can help.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll keep going on, and like I say, when we get to the hormone section, I'll bring some of that back up.
With the lifespan, does it show with the DNA, like the telomeres? Is that?
Oh yeah, for sure. So there's a bunch of telomere genes, and you don't have any that light up there. That's the exact section where that would come up, and you don't have any issues there.
Yeah, both my parents passed away early 70s, and 3 out of my 4 grandparents passed away before I was even born. So I was like,
wow.
Oh goodness, I've got a short lifespan.
Yeah, well, this sirtuin gene is definitely one you want to fix.
Okay.
There's a Harvard researcher named David Sinclair, and he is a huge proponent of resveratrol. And again, I'm not so much because it acts like estrogen, but resveratrol activates sirtuin, and that's one of the ways you can fix this. But so does proanthocyanidins. But the point is, like, that's his direct research. That's what he studies, and he is just the biggest fan of it for everybody. Okay. But in my opinion, it's not that big of a deal for most people. You can save the money, but if you have this gene, you definitely want to fix it.
Okay.
You're not going to get enough from your diet. You'd have to drink like 100 glasses of red wine a day in order to get enough of these compounds.
And that's going to cause other problems.
Right, this is not happening. So most things you can fix with your diet naturally, but not that one. So speaking of diet, let's switch over to that section. Sure. And right off the bat, dairy looks like it's a real risk for you. I'd be careful with dairy. That's not necessarily dairy fats. That would be dairy proteins and dairy carbs. The dairy fats, unless you're super, super sensitive to dairy, they're not an issue. I mean, do you feel bloated or anything like that, inflammation with dairy?
Not necessarily. I love my dairy.
Oh
my gosh, I love everything. Cheeses and everything. Yeah. Yeah.
Boy, I'd be careful with that.
Okay.
I mean, at a younger age, you can get away with it because you can get away with a lot more cheating at younger ages because your metabolism is super hot and super high and all that. But as you age, you have to dial in a little bit more.
Okay.
Just in order to stay healthy, you're going to be more sensitive to the things that you're genetically disposed to, in this case dairy, I'd be really careful. Again, with 2++s in these genes, most people with these genes, they're super sensitive to dairy, and it's a real problem. If you don't feel it, it's probably less of a problem, but it's still going to cause inflammation, and it just exacerbates a lot of chronic issues.
Wow, I would have never known that. Wow.
Yeah. And you can try it. I would cut it for a month at least. At least start with cutting it for 1 month, like really strict, and then go from there. And again, you can reintroduce butter and 100% cream back in, because those don't have any protein, they don't have any carbs, they're just fat. But the other products I'd be more careful with. And again, at least try it for 1 month. That's what I would suggest. And with the type 2 diabetes genes, you're really good. I mean, your body does pretty well with carbs. You have 1++ gene related to zinc transport, SLC30A8. It's a zinc transporter. It's a pretty common gene issue. It just means if you're not getting enough zinc, your body's not clearing blood sugar particularly well. What do you know what your blood sugar is? Your glucose?
Yes, it's 95.
Okay. So, I mean, I like to see it below 90, but that's pretty good. It's better than most Americans, I'd say, to be at 95, but like I say, I always shoot for 90 or below. So, I'd definitely take some zinc unless you're getting a lot of red meat as a supplement. And, just lower your carbs until you get into the below 90 range. But it's pretty much that simple. I mean, overall, your body is really adept at handling carbs, thankfully. So you've been able to eat more than most people. Like last night, I talked to somebody from, oh boy, where were they from? I don't remember what state, but they had terrible genes. Oh, from Florida, I think. But terrible genes for dealing with carbs. And he was super, super strict about it, and his blood sugar was still pretty high. It's a tough life when your body can't deal with carbs, but because, every gas station you go to, everywhere you look, there's just carbs everywhere. The other aspect, too, is you're a higher responder to metformin. You're not a super high responder, but you're not a poor responder. Have you heard about metformin?
Yes, but I'm not sure. Isn't that like cholesterol or?
No, it's blood sugar drug.
Blood sugar. It's okay.
Yeah, a lot of people prescribe it for diabetes, and it's a prescription drug in America. Some countries it's not it's over the counter in a lot of countries because it's basically a plant supplement. It's from the French lilac plant, but sometimes it causes diarrhea. Sometimes it causes nausea, things like that. So they make it a prescription here. But that's a cheat code, like a lot of people take it because in animal studies it extends lifespan, and that's kind of the new focus on this drug is it improves metabolism and extends lifespan. So if you can take it, a lot of people take it. Again, it's a problem because it's prescription. You got to go to your doctor and try and convince them you don't have diabetes, but you want to take this. And again, it's totally up to you. Usually if you just drop your carbs a little bit, you'll get below 90, no problem.
Okay.
So that's, it's a good strategy. But, a lot of people ask about metformin. You have pretty good genes for it. In heart disease, you have exceptional genes. What did your parents and grandparents, have in terms of health issues?
My grandparents, I'm not even sure because they died before I was born, except one. And my mom... that we didn't do an autopsy, but they thought he was either a stroke or heart attack. And my dad had a really rare form of brain cancer. And
yeah, wow.
It was just really bizarre because they were really active, very social, very part of the community. And then it just everybody was so shocked that they died as early as they did.
Wow. Yeah, the one heart disease gene you have, it's called mannose binding lectin 2. It's a lectin binding gene. And, basically it binds lectins and triggers your immune system. And that's how it increases heart disease or artery plaque, which could ultimately lead to strokes as well, just plaques in arteries. But, it's a plus minus, number one, so it's not that big of a deal. But if you do end up measuring your calcium CT score, and basically measuring and to check and see if you have plaque in your arteries. If you do have any plaque in your arteries, I would avoid lectins. And it's pretty challenging to avoid lectins because a lot of plants have lectins. So I wouldn't do it willy-nilly. I wouldn't just do it it's unnecessarily. But if you do have plaque, that's the biggest lever to pull because that's your genetic code. And lectins, there's a whole book about it called The Plant Paradox. And he thinks everybody should avoid lectins. Stephen Gundry, I've talked to him in person for like an hour about this. But I disagree. I think people with genetic issues like this, if they have plaque in their arteries, they should avoid lectins. So I'm a little bit more, liberal about this idea. But it's, again, it's at least in your case, it's the only heart disease risk gene you have. So if you do get plaque in your arteries, it's a great strategy. Avoid lectins.
Okay.
Otherwise, I wouldn't worry about it. And especially with your gut genes. I mean, your gut genes are exceptional. There's so many genes in this section. Right? And you can see you have 1++ and 1+-, and that's it in this whole leaky gut GI section. And the +- I'm not the least bit worried about. And the ++ is your cannabinoid receptor, your CBD receptor. So if you have gut issues, you can take CBD, but it's really doubtful that you'd have gut issues because you don't have any other genes that would cause gut issues.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And the skin, similar, I doubt you have skin issues, right?
No.
Yeah. So those +- genes are a lot less of an issue than ++. So let's switch over to probably the most important section, which is the vitamin, hormone, and detox section.
Okay.
And right away, vitamin D comes up as a ++, couple ++s actually. So do you know your levels for your blood?
I do not.
Okay. Do you supplement vitamin D?
I do.
Yes?
I do.
Mm-hmm. What level?
Not as many as I use that you've suggested here.
Okay.
Not nearly.
Yeah, I would probably bump it up. The thing is, you are in South Carolina.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, right.
Get outside.
You might be. Yeah, you might be getting enough sun, but if you're not, that's always a good option. And by the way, when you go and get a blood test, the average American is 30.
Okay.
And if you get a 30, they'll tell you that you're good. 30 nanograms per milliliter. The problem with that is they've done studies on hunter-gathering tribes, and everybody in those tribes, I've looked at the lab tests, everybody is between 70 and 100.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Big difference.
And exactly. And as soon as you get below 50, you start seeing in research, when you start doing association studies, you start seeing associations with all kinds of issues when you get below 50. So I like to see people at least above 50.
Okay.
And you don't want to go too high. You can get calcium in your arteries if you go outrageously high with vitamin D, but with your genetics, it would be hard to get it too high. Okay. So make sure it's at least above 50. And PON1 is the next gene, and that's a gene that helps break down these seed oils, these oxidized oils. Mm-hmm. So like canola oil and flax seed and literally anything that comes from a seed. Soybean oil, grapeseed oil. Just ask yourself, does it come from a seed? I should avoid it, right? Like fruits, like avocados and olives and coconuts, oils from fruits are good. In your case, they're fine. And butter should be fine. Again, be careful with dairy, but it's just a fat. But the seeds I would avoid. That's the key there.
Okay.
Testosterone. So here's where I feel like you have some heavy hitters here. So testosterone, you have a ++ for lower testosterone, and then when you hit the estrogen, you have a couple of ++ genes. So starting with testosterone, if you feel like, and I know you said in your email, you feel like there was like a switch that happened where suddenly your metabolism went down and you struggled with weight loss and you haven't in the past and all that. You probably have some connections, right? You're a chiropractor.
Yes, I do.
I mean, I would find a doctor that is willing to work with you in terms of optimization. Most doctors in America, they wait until your health is in the toilet and then they help you. And it's better if you can find somebody to help you optimize your testosterone, because that's probably low. And you don't want to be on the low end of that range. You want to be on the higher end of that range.
Okay.
So that's the first thing, because you'll be shocked at how much better you feel, how much better your brain works. That's a huge benefit of testosterone if you're low. You'll definitely have brain fog. You'll have more energy. I mean, the whole thing, right? You'll lose weight faster. It's amazing. So that's the first thing. And the next gene, the SHBG gene, just take zinc, right? It's plus minus. I'm not worried about that one. But the estrogen gene, or the 2 pluses in your estrogen section, I would also get proactive on those. And the biggest thing is the sauna, right? You definitely want to use a sauna. And the CYP1B1 gene, that's a liver enzyme. So anytime you see CYP, that generally means it's in your liver. Okay. And it's involved in detox. And that particular one, CYP1B1, it's involved in detoxing artificial estrogens like BPA and phthalates and red food dyes and literally all these like sunscreen chemicals. Be really careful with sunscreen. All of these chemicals that are just all around us. You know, that new car smell, right? That plasticky smell. Those are estrogens that basically trick your body into thinking that you have good levels of natural estrogen, but you don't, because it's all artificial estrogen. It's chemicals that screw up your body. And the sauna, they've done studies on the sauna with skin patches. So it's like a nicotine patch without the nicotine they put on people.
Oh.
And they have groups of people that don't go in saunas and groups of people that go in saunas. And the ones that go in saunas, they take off those skin patches and measure chemicals, and they're just full of BPA and phthalates and all that. Oh, you sweat it out like crazy. So,
right, so, I need that. I need a sauna.
Yeah, 100%. And it's, you know, the interesting thing about the studies, the people that weren't in saunas didn't have any of that stuff on their skin patches. And the crazy thing is neither group urinated out those chemicals. So you don't really pee them out, but you sweat them out. And so for you, that's huge. So that's that gene. And then that ESR1 gene, that's your estrogen receptor. And the thing about estrogen, I wouldn't be afraid of it. Like, make sure your estrogen levels are good. Not high, not low, just make sure they're good. Because again, if you get a testosterone prescription, you might need to get a little progesterone and a little estrogen. Estrogen is protective. Like natural estrogen, the BPA, the phthalates, all those artificial ones are always bad, right? That's why you want to sweat them out. But the natural ones are good, unless they're too high. So just make sure you have plenty of natural estrogen, because sometimes if you're low on estrogen, you'll have a lot of these brain fog issues as well, and the weight loss issues.
And that's what's, I just actually had a telehealth conference with my gynecologist, and because I'm in menopause, he suggested putting an estrogen patch on, because I didn't want to ingest any hormones, and he suggested, I think it's called like a Prim something patch.
Sure.
And I thought, well, maybe that's not being ingested is better than just having a patch.
It's definitely better having a patch, yeah.
And then he also talked about a sublingual that I would take at night that's a progesterone. Now, he never talked about a testosterone, but he just said there's a estrogen patch I can do, because I didn't want to ingest anything. And then I thought, and then he said the sublingual progesterone, but he didn't say anything about the testosterone.
Yeah. Well, you'd have to check your levels first if you haven't. But the key is, in my opinion, to really work with an expert who can make all three of those in one cream.
Okay.
They do what's called compounding.
Yes, I have. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And they put the right ratio of all three of those, and then you just do one single cream on the inside of your leg or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's way easier than a patch. And there's a doctor down in Tennessee, which is pretty close to you, especially because he's on the eastern part of Tennessee. I think that's close. I don't know.
It is.
Yeah, his name is Keith Nichols. And after we're done, I'll send you an email. I'll send you his email, just so you at least have the contact info. But
thank you. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's Chattanooga, Tennessee, which I always get confused with Chattahoochee, right? But it's really close, and I've driven over there and stuff and talked to him. He's probably my favorite sex hormone doctor in America. Just really good at helping people optimize their levels. He used to be the doctor for the Tennessee Titans football team, and he does the MMA fights and stuff. He's the doctor that's ringside on those mixed martial arts fights, so he's a busy guy, but he's really, really good at, optimizing those 3 levels: progesterone, testosterone, and estrogen or estradiol. And he's also really good with the thyroid hormones, because you want to check that as well. That's right after the estrogen section here, because if your thyroid is off, that's also really, really difficult to lose weight, because your metabolism will shut down. So even if you're lowering your calories, if your metabolism is way down, it's still not going to help. So that's another one to pay attention to with your plus gene in that thyroid section. And then you got a couple plus minuses. You have a bunch of potential thyroid issues. You might not have issues there, but it's worth keeping tabs on, especially with your symptoms. Does that make sense?
Yes. And the only number I have right now for thyroid is my TSH, and that's 1.43.
Yeah, it's super low. Yeah. I mean, I like to see people around 3 at least. And that just became a huge priority then. So I would at least take iodine.
I do.
Okay, good. Yeah. Because at least then you've got the building block for your thyroid hormones. But with the genetics you have, it's going to be an uphill battle. And what I always tell people is, look, as you age, your thyroid hormones decline. That's true for everybody, irrespective of your genes. So every 80-year-old should probably be on some thyroid optimization. Again, I'm not concerned about waiting until your levels are in the toilet. I want to see people optimized and energetic, right? Like, how many 80-year-olds do you know that have a lot of energy? There's not a lot, right? And it's unfortunate, because it's very preventable with bumping up the thyroid levels. And it's only like $30 a month. It's not like an outrageously expensive thing to do. And it's even cheaper than that if you need a lower dose of these thyroid hormones. But again, they need a prescription. You got to work with a doctor, because you can screw up your heartbeat if you take too much.
Okay.
So you definitely don't want to take too much, but again, with your genetics, I wouldn't be afraid of that as well. So the hormones, I think, probably if there's one major theme on this DNA, because your gut is so great, your brain genes are so great, you have a few stress genes you might want to watch out for, but again, the hormones are going to help with that. The hormones are going to help with all the issues you're having, I think.
Fabulous.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest lever to pull. And then the next section is, you have a bunch of empty sections, which is good. And then you have these COMT genes in the catecholamines section. Do you see that?
Yes.
So catecholamines are hormones that nobody talks about.
Okay.
But they signal to your kidneys to excrete water and excrete electrolytes, and they don't break them down as effectively as most people. So they're sitting in your body, these catecholamines. There's more of them in your body, and they're saying, hey, get rid of water, get rid of salt. So basically, you want to be really proactive to replace water and replace electrolytes. Particularly if you do a keto diet or if you do fasting, make sure you have electrolyte pills. And if you're doing the sauna, which again I recommend, make sure you get some electrolyte pills and take those. Do you ever have to wake up in the middle of the night to pee, to urinate?
You know what? I recently, and that's why I had my A1C tested, because I was like, am I getting diabetic or something? Because I don't know, everything's just changing. Ever since I turned like 52, everything's starting to change. I'm starting to worry about everything. And I'm starting to get up, and I'm like, this has never happened before.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty common with this gene. And that's the exact situation where when you're younger, you don't have an issue, and then as you age, these genes kind of manifest. So I would tinker with electrolyte pills, try one in the morning, try one in the evening, try one at noon on different days, not on the same day.
Okay.
And just see how that impacts your ability to, to sleep at night and to retain electrolytes and when you pee and all that kind of thing. Just tinker around a little bit with that, because you definitely have this gene where you don't want to disrupt your sleep. The other thing is, like for example, when you take testosterone, your body, you'll retain a lot more water. It'll help with this as well. The sex hormones will help.
Okay.
Like for me, I have a prescription for testosterone. I rarely use it. I only use it if I injure my back. But when I take it, if I take it right before bed, if I rub on the cream before bed, when I wake up in the morning, I don't even pee. Like I barely pee, because my body's retaining so much liquid.
Okay.
And that's shocking, right? Because most of the days when I wake up, I have to pee like crazy. And so I'm practically dehydrated in the morning if I take testosterone at night and I don't chug a bunch of water. So the sex hormones have a huge impact here as well. And, you know, exercise is also really valuable because it helps your body kind of get away with some of these gene issues. It makes you younger effectively, you know, if you're training. Like, so I would include some training and lifting and stuff like that.
My energy is like in the tank, so I don't do anything, even like walking in the heat of South Carolina summers, forget about it. I just don't even have any energy, and that's so not like me.
Right. Yeah, those hormones are off for sure. Thyroid and sex hormones. Again, I'll send you Keith Nichols' info. He's hard to find, but...
Thank you. And he takes lay people?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, particularly if I send him over.
So drop your name.
And you're close. Yeah, I'll just send him an email. I'll CC you on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's going to be important. I mean, the other section is B9. It's methylfolate. And you have that MTHFR gene. You may have heard of this gene. It's a gene that a lot of people struggle with a lot of areas with this gene. Thankfully, there's a bunch of different versions of the MTHFR gene, and the worst version is called C677T, and you don't have that version. You've got the A1298C, but you do have a plus there. And the point is, you need to make sure you get methylfolate. Whether you're getting it from leafy greens every day or whether you supplement it, make sure you get it.
Okay.
Because your body doesn't do well with folic acid. The folic acid is the fake stuff that they put in multivitamins and things. Now, you might have it. The company that you have sounds pretty good. It might not be in your version, but I would check, just to make sure, because a lot of people can manage folic acid just fine. They don't have any issues, but for you, I would avoid it because your body's just not converting it to methylfolate. And methylfolate's really important. It's important to preventing depression. It's important for sleep. It's important for energy. It's important for fertility. So a lot of things.
Okay.
And the rest of the genes in this category are pretty similar, these MTHF, DU1, and things like that. And what's really ironic, if you look at the bottom of this section, TCN2, and then you see the B12 section, which is FUT2.
Yes.
You see how those two genes kind of oppose each other?
Yeah.
Right? One of them says supplement B12. Yeah, well, that happens, right? Because our ancestors aren't all from the same country or from the same tribe or whatever. So sometimes you have genes that, offset each other. So in this case, you have a gene where supplementing B12 is really important. And then you have another gene where you don't need to supplement B12 because your gut uptake is exceptional. So I would say they probably offset. I wouldn't worry about B12 that much.
Okay.
Because again, your gut uptake is really good. So you're getting it as long as you're eating meat. If you're not eating meat, I would supplement it irrespective of your genetics.
Okay.
But it's just another way to save money if you don't need to. If you're eating meat, you're fine. And then heavy metals, not that bad. I talked to somebody, again, the same person I was talking to last night. He had like 6 genes in this section. And you've got 0 pluses here. And the plus minuses, probably not a concern. You might check, your heavy metals at some point just to see. But I doubt it. They would be a big problem.
Okay.
I know you mentioned in your email you're taking glutathione, if I remember.
Occasionally, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm even taking it properly. I take it in the morning when I'm feeling really I can't get up and go.
Sure.
So I don't know if it's like a psychological thing that I'm doing or placebo, but it just helps when I take it. So I might be maybe once every 2 weeks. I don't take it often.
Right, and I don't think you need to. I think that's probably perfect, to be honest, with these genes. A lot of people, they have, or not a lot, but a certain percentage of people have issues clearing heavy metals related to their glutathione genes, and then in that case, they need to take it quite a bit. But with yours, your genes are pretty good. A few plus minuses on these glutathione genes. Maybe take it just to be safe once in a while, like you're doing.
Okay.
But I don't think you need to take it all the time. So again, I think that section was the biggest, most important section. Did you have any questions looking back on that one, the detox?
Well, I kind of think of when you talked about sauna detoxing, but I'm doing right now the menopause hot flashing, and I'm just wondering, would that be counterproductive, or because then that would really, because I feel like I'm very heat, like my body just can't regulate heat right now.
Right. No, you should be fine. I just obviously I would be cautious to jump out of it, if you feel weird or if you don't feel right. And don't do it during a hot flash. I mean, how often do you have hot flashes?
I've been struggling now for about a year, and it seems like it's getting better, but mostly at night when I'm sleeping. I will,
right.
It'll wake me up in a sweat.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would just do them, just do the sauna in the morning.
Okay.
And, you'll be fine. Just take those electrolytes. And
before? Do I take electrolytes
take
before
them before,
or after? Okay,
exactly.
Before.
Either one, but generally before is better.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, once you get on the sex hormones, that's probably your biggest bet as well to preventing those.
Okay.
So that's a worthwhile pursuit.
Wow, it sounds so great, because I really thought I was starting to go crazy with everything happening and changing, and I was just like, I'm so glad we're having this conversation. It's bringing so much peace to my mind.
Good. Yeah, it's amazing how good your genetics are, except when you hit that hormone section, right? And those are pretty easy to fix, thankfully. It's not like
that's really great news.
Not like you can't do anything. Yeah. Well, and speaking of more good genes, I mean, when you hit the gym section of this report, you've got pretty good genes. I mean, I'd be surprised if you have joint issues, even though you have some joint risk genes, just because, most of these are plus minus, and most of them are related to gut health. So if your gut's good, your joints are probably good, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So if you have joint issues, you can look at some of that stuff, but to be honest, I'm not too worried about it.
And really, I think it's just because I've been, what I do, as a chiropractor, I'm very physical. I use my hands and my body. So
right.
I find like I'm really physical. So I'm starting to get a little bit of aches in my shoulder or my wrist.
Sure.
But really, I'm quite happy with, as physical as my job is, I don't really have a lot of aches and pains.
That is good, yeah. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Like I say, those IL genes, IL-2RA and IL-1B, those interleukin genes, most of the time those are just triggered by gut issues.
Okay.
And inflammation from the gut. And as long as you don't have that, and same with STAT4. So basically, pretty much all these genes are just related to gut health. So as long as you keep that gut good, keep the sugar below 90. And SLC2A9 for gout risk, I'm also not too worried about. It's a fructose transporter, so if you get any indication of gout, I would cut fruit. I'd be super careful with fructose, which is any kind of sugar, right? Because 50% of sugar is fructose. Mm-hmm. Like table sugar is 50% glucose, 50% fructose. So be careful with that, and be careful with high fructose corn syrup, any kind of fructose.
Okay. Yeah, I was surprised I was a plus because neither of my parents had gout or any issues like that. So I was surprised it was like a plus.
Yeah, and even if you have a risk for it, it doesn't mean you're going to get it, right?
Okay.
It just means if you do, it's pretty explainable. And the funny thing, the irony is if you go to the doctor and you have gout, they'll tell you to avoid red meat. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it has nothing to do with fructose. So that's just one of those silly things. The next two genes, they're risks for like low back issues in particular. Thankfully, you have a lot of friends, I'm sure, that help you with your back. It's probably your main focus.
As a matter of fact, I do.
So you're probably pretty good here. I mean, you could do some collagen protein powder, just because that cartilage intermediate layer protein gene, CILP, collagen really helps that gene. They've done some interesting studies with rats, because there's this dogma that scientists used to have, which is if you feed animals or people or whatever collagen, it gets broken down into the building blocks and then dispersed into your body. But what's really interesting, they gave rats radioactive collagen, and they fed it to them, and then they looked later to see where that radioactivity ended up, and it was like all in the joints and in the discs in the back. which is super interesting because, your body, in other words, can break those down. Sure, it breaks down into the building blocks, but then it reconstructs that collagen back into your joints.
Where you need it.
Which is really interesting that your body can determine that based on the ratios of the amino acids and whatnot. So that's a good preventative measure for keeping your back healthy. Just, either bone broth, which is my favorite for this, or collagen protein powder.
With the collagen, I know a lot of people are talking collagen. Everybody's selling it now. There's like 5 different strands of collagen or types. And it's kind of getting confusing because everybody's getting in that collagen market. So right. I'm kind of confused of which collagen and what's, synthetic, what's not.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I don't think it matters that much, to be honest.
Okay.
All the collagen is super glycine rich. Some people, they don't even take collagen, they just do glycine and they get all the same benefits because the glycine amino acid is really important there and having a really high ratio of glycine. But yeah, I mean, the version that I recommend on my website, I have that page, What I Use, that I sent you, the email, AJ Consulting Company /what I use. And the version that I have does have, I think, 4 collagen types in there. So they get some from fish, they get some from from eggshells, like on the inside layer of the eggshell, there's collagen. So they derive it from multiple different sources. I don't think it matters that much, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah. And the blood pressure, you're probably pretty good, right?
Actually, I kind of run low.
Low, okay, interesting. Is it like a problematic low, or is it just like...
No, every time I go, they're always like, you're so low, you're perfect.
Sure. Okay. Well,
but I'm like, I'm just historically low.
Right.
Not low, but lower.
Good. Yeah. I mean, it's better to be there than to be high in terms of your arteries and all that. Because you do have a gene that's called nitric oxide synthase that some people get higher blood pressure with that if they're not exercising, if they're not... if their body weight's off, stuff like that. So another important reason to exercise and get on the sex hormones and optimize your body weight. Again, that will help. It's all back to the hormones.
Okay. Is there a better kind of exercise to do than swimming, walking, or hitting the... I'm really not a gym person. I've wasted so much money on gym memberships that I never used.
Yeah. I think in your case, because your genes are pretty flexible, I like heavy lifting.
Really? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's a complete opposite of what I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to be like, just take a walk in your neighborhood. You'll be fine.
No.
Really? Oh my gosh.
No, for me, I just do it. I just commit to exactly 45 minutes and just go and do it. And after about 6 months, you get in the habit and you don't even think about it. You can definitely get your own barbell, and all you really need is a barbell for heavy lifting, and learn how to deadlift and squat.
Okay.
And I've had 70-year-old people that's just learned to deadlift, that I've taught them how to deadlift, and they're just shocked at how much better their hormones regulate and how much stronger they feel and how much more energy. Yeah, because it actually will give you energy, so you don't feel like it. And it takes a lot to get motivated to do it. But once you get going on it, you'll actually build up energy. It increases your energy. Deadlifting sounds super intimidating because it's called deadlifting. It's just basically picking something up off the floor and putting it back down. It's not that hard.
Okay.
You just want to make sure to watch YouTube videos on how to do it because you don't want to do it wrong. You don't want to round your back and things like that.
I see those people at my practice.
Right. All the time, yeah. I've seen people in the gym. There was a guy, he had the barbell behind him, behind his heels, and he was deadlifting it behind him, and I'm like, what on earth are you doing? You're destroying your back. His back was so rounded in order to get back there and grab it, and he was pulling it up on the backs of his legs.
Dude, wow.
It's such a disaster waiting to happen. Even if you talk to people like that, they're like, I've never gotten injured. It's like, yeah, but you're going to. Just the mechanics aren't solid. But as long as you're doing solid mechanics and you start super, super light, the trick is to start ridiculously light to the point where it's not even challenging.
Okay.
And then to just add 5 pounds each time you do it. Do it twice a week and just add 5 pounds. Not 10 pounds, but like 2.5 pound weights to each side of the barbell.
Okay.
And then do that again the next week. Just keep adding 2.5. And eventually you'll start to notice the difference. It takes a few weeks. It'll take like 6 weeks before you start to feel it. And then you'll realize, wow, this really works. And it's still not fun, but I'll keep doing it.
Okay. I'll trust you on that one.
Yeah. IGF I'm not worried about because you're not trying to put on muscle mass like a bodybuilder or something. And pain sensitivity, what's really funny with this podcast, most people are normal pain sensitivity, but it seems like most of the people I have on this podcast are low sensitivity pain, which is funny because it's not that common. But yeah, you have low pain sensitivity. You don't feel pain the same way most people do, which is good, except if you push your body too hard, you can get injured. Okay. Because you don't feel the pain,
Actually, when I got your report, that's the first thing I told my husband, because he thinks like when I tell him like I'm in pain or something, he just like blows it off, and I'm like, here, there's proof, it's genetics.
Right. and it's not that common. Yeah. So in fact, the first person I had on this podcast was a professional baseball pitcher, and I did his wife's DNA the day before, or maybe a couple days before, whatever. And it was funny because they both had low pain sensitivity, just like you. And they were laughing about it when we were talking because she joined us for the podcast.
Oh, I listened to that one. I did. That was really great. That was a great podcast. I learned a lot.
David Ardsma is phenomenal. But it was interesting because, like I say, that's a pretty rare gene. And for a couple to have it, for both parents to have it, and then, of course, all their kids are going to have that. It's not that common. And you've got it as well, so there you go. So like I say, not a bad gene. Just be careful so you don't get injured. If you feel pain, pay attention to it.
Okay.
Any questions on the gym section there?
No.
Yeah, good.
No, but you sure I don't just have to go for a nice walk in the woods?
No, you gotta push.
No? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would try and do what I call... My favorite is what I call the big 6 movements. Because, if you go to the gym, you see these people like doing bicep curls and things, right? Like you take a dumbbell and you just curl it. But the only muscle that basically works is your bicep. So that's called an isolation exercise. So you're just isolating one muscle. But my favorite are compound movements that they literally activate multiple muscle groups throughout the movement. So squatting is a good example because squatting, you use your quads, but you also use your low back and you use your hamstrings, you use your calves, you use a lot of muscles.
Okay.
And the deadlift, similar, like you activate just tons of muscles when you deadlift. And so those are 2 big prime moving, you're pushing and pulling with your legs. But bench pressing is also really good because you're pressing out. And then rowing is phenomenal because you're pulling back. So it's like a push-pull in that direction. And you can also do that overhead. You can do overhead press and then a pull down with, that like cable pull down thing. It's like a pull-up, but you're just using the cable. Yeah, you can do it in a vertical direction. So that's another joint or another compound movement that is in the vertical direction. So those are the big 6, right?
Okay, got it.
But I would start with deadlifting and squatting. Just do those.
Yeah, I like that. That's doable for me.
Yeah, it only takes like 15 minutes, trust me.
Perfect.
For deadlift, I would do 1 set of 5 reps, and that's it. And then for squat, I would do 5 sets of 5 reps. And like say, you'll be done in 15 minutes. Maybe do some warm-ups without any weight, that kind of thing, and you're out.
Okay.
That's it. And then do
Sounds
it twice
good.
a week. You might have to buy some of those little 2.5 pound weights. Sometimes the gyms don't even have them. But they're worth having because you don't want to go up too fast in the weights. So the last section is the sleep section. And you have pretty good genes here. A couple of plus minuses that may or may not give you trouble, particularly if your hormones are off, particularly as you age. So, you might want to pay attention to some of these, but they're not that big of a deal, plus minus. You know what I mean? I mean, the 1++ you have, WWC1, that one doesn't cause poor sleep, but it means if you get poor sleep, you have about 25% less memory recall. So it is really important to get the good sleep. And that clock gene is particularly notorious, even though that's a plus minus gene. That one's notorious for causing people to have poor sleep. They've done clinical studies with lithium on that gene, and they found that it improves people's sleep when you have the exact version that you have, even the plus minus.
Okay.
So that's a good option as a supplement. Low dose lithium, not high dose where you get nausea and stuff like that, obviously. But magnesium, I think, is even more fundamental with that gene. In the evening, you want to take magnesium.
I do.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And how do you sleep?
I used to be a really good sleeper, and then now with menopause,
then the hormones are off.
Yeah,
exactly.
And now I'm like, I wake up completely exhausted, and I'm taking like 2 magnesium pills before I go to sleep. Not as a sleep aid, but it's just like a calming, and my mind is racing with everything, and then I'm getting up because I'm hot, throwing the sheets off, and now I'm sleeping with a fan right by my head.
Yeah.
My husband was like, I'm cold. I'm like, put a sweater on.
Yeah. Well,
I used to be a good sleeper.
Exactly. I think it goes back to the hormones again. Another thing too, I've heard a lot of good things about the chili pad, like the cooling pad you put under your side of the bed.
Okay.
Because I know a lot of people that track their sleep with the Oura Ring. I mean, literally every day I talk to people that use it, and I personally use it, and my wife uses it. It's just a sleep tracker, right? So you can track your deep sleep and your REM sleep. And I can't tell you I don't even have a chili pad, but I'm thinking about getting one because I've heard so many people from all different walks of life and backgrounds say, I cannot believe how much that particular product benefited my sleep.
Oh, okay. Okay.
The caveat for you, I think it's more important to get your hormones optimized, of course, first. But it's something to keep in mind. Like, that's a good product, even if you're perfectly healthy, from what I've heard. Okay. Again, I haven't tested it. It's on the list of things to test, but I've heard enough people say that I'm sure I'm pretty confident. But overall, you have great genes.
Oh, good. That's great to hear.
Well, good. So did you have any questions, kind of looking back over the whole thing? Anything that you want to go back over?
Yeah, you've mentioned a couple of things like, what I should do and things I should get maybe. Cost-wise, would it be, better to get like the sauna or an Oura Ring, or even I think you had something like the Jewel thing. The
Joovv. Yeah. Joovv.
So I know I've looked into all these, and they're all quite pricey. If there was like an order of preference, like a priority, which would it be in all these kind of bigger ticketed items?
Yeah, for you, I think the Joovv was unnecessary, like the infrared light's unnecessary.
Okay, even with the vitamin D, it wouldn't help my low vitamin D?
No, it doesn't help vitamin D.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
No, that you need like a special UV light for that, which I have, but that light's like $500, and
okay.
You definitely don't need that in South Carolina. In Minnesota, some people need it because they have like they get depression in the winter and stuff, and it works for that, and I've tested it. But yeah, you definitely don't need that one. The Joovv, or the infrared light, sometimes I recommend if people aren't exercising. If you have some of these blood flow genes where exercise is really important, but it's better just to do the exercise, to be honest. So that's an easy way to save money.
Okay.
I would say the sauna and the hormones are the two main ones. Like optimizing the hormones and getting that sauna. It's phenomenal.
And then with the sauna, I've just been reading recently, like there's the Finnish style sauna, and then people are like, and then people were like, I was listening to a podcast or something, and they were criticizing the infrared sauna and saying, well, that's not a real sauna. Right. So what do you recommend?
Yeah, it's a tricky thing, right? Because, I mean, to be honest, the heat is critical. You definitely want the heat.
Okay.
And I want to see the sauna get up to 180, because here's the thing. They've done 20-year studies. There's a guy named Jari Laukkanen over in Scandinavia. 20-year studies, which is crazy long for a study. They found everything you can possibly get. Like, if you can get Alzheimer's, you can get cancer, you can get heart disease. All of those things decrease in regular sauna users. So you have less heart disease, you have less Alzheimer's, you have less depression, you have less everything, right? Less cancer. So for everybody, a sauna is exceptional, particularly with your genetics where you have issues clearing the estrogen and stuff, the artificial estrogen. But the studies are all done at 180 degrees. And they found there's no benefit unless you're in there 3 times a week for 10 minutes per session.
Okay.
So anything longer, so you got to at least get that 10 minutes, you know. And for me, I literally sit there with my watch and once I hit 11 minutes, I'm out.
Okay.
Because I hate sitting in there. But I do it. And the infrared is not as well studied in that regard. If your infrared can get to 180, you know, if you can combine the two, like you've got infrared and you got the heat, that's exceptional. If your infrared only gets to 160 or something, you got to go for like 20 minutes at least. You know, you just got to go longer.
Okay.
They're still okay. I think it's probably just as beneficial, but there's no study to prove it.
Okay.
But you definitely would have to go longer.
Okay.
So I don't have a really strong opinion either way. I think just having a sauna, period, that's the key.
Okay.
Either one is really good.
And I've got just 2 more questions. One, I listened to another podcast, and I ended up buying like I don't know what's it called, like a magnetic mat. Mm-hmm. And I didn't find
like grounding
Yeah, that's what it is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a grounding mat, and I used it for like 3 months in my bed, and thought it would help me with my sleep. I didn't find anything. Is that does that do anything?
Sometimes, yeah, some people. And there are genes, you know, people kind of laugh when they hear about stuff like this, but there's genes where you're like real electrically sensitive. But yeah, you didn't have any of those gene issues. And the other thing is some people have, their bed is already grounded. You know what I mean? Like they have a wooden bed or whatever.
Oh yeah, I do. Okay, on hardwood floors too.
Exactly. Whereas other people, they have like their beds on plastic rollers or plastic something or other, and it's not grounded. So you might already be grounded. It's not an issue.
Okay.
And again, some people are super sensitive to that, and that's actually pretty rare, you know.
Okay. And my last question is, I have been starting to follow people that are doing a carnivore or carnivore-ish diet. Would my DNA, I really want to embrace that because it makes sense, and I can get off my carbs and this and that. But I don't even like the taste of meat, but I know it's good for me. So I've researched it, but I didn't know if my genes were ones that would be good with a carnivore-ish diet.
That's a good question. I mean, I think you certainly should eat meat. I don't think you should go straight carnivore in your case.
Okay.
It'd be pretty extreme and unnecessary. You can certainly try it. I'm a big fan of trying virtually anything, you know. Like I've tried vegan, you know, like I try everything just to see for like at least 6 weeks, but in your case, I'm not sure it would be the optimal thing.
Okay.
If you do try it, make sure your hormones are optimized first.
Okay. Yeah, that's good advice. Yeah.
At least you get a fair trial that way with it.
And I really think, like, I don't know if it's scientific, but I feel like that's why I'm so attracted to the carbs. Is just for the energy. Like it's I know mentally, like I know that it's just a short term,
real temporary.
Yeah, but I got to get like going in the day. I've got to get, you know, and so I'm thinking, if I fix my hormones, then I won't be as addicted to the carbs.
Exactly.
For the energy pick me up.
Right. No, 100%. It's funny, I'm watching this show on Netflix called Alone, or I think it's on Amazon Prime, but whatever. It's literally just called Alone. And these people go out in the wilderness and survive. And they're pretty much experts at wilderness survival. And they just see who can last the longest, and then they get money. But what's funny is none of them are vegans, right? Like they might come in as vegans and say like, I'm just going to eat plants. And then after about 2 weeks of starving, they start and they're catching mice and literally eating mice and things, which is kind of hilarious because it takes so much energy to catch a mouse out in the woods, and you get so little energy back from it. But they're all going for meat at a certain point. It is super it's super nutrition dense. I mean, the argument that the carnivore people would say, well, if you went carnivore, then your hormones would be fine.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so then you wouldn't have to do anything with your hormones, but I don't think that would be true.
For me,
with
my
with
DNA.
Your genetics. Exactly. Some people that actually is very true, but not, I mean, it could be, but I would be shocked if that was the case. Again, I would do the hormones first.
And actually, now I do have one more question. I have been on your website for the things that you recommend, and I noticed the water purifier system. Is that still something you're keen about?
Oh yeah, oh for sure, right.
Okay.
And that it's amazing. It's only $500 if I remember.
Okay.
And of course you got to install it yourself, or else it'd probably be another $500 to get somebody to come out. But I've had people come out and give me quotes for their reverse osmosis systems, and it's at least $1,000, for like the Culligan and whatnot. And when we go on trips, I've got 4 kids, and if we forget to bring a water filter or something, it's amazing how much water they drink. Like it saves you money in the long term to have a good filter like that.
Okay.
I change it like once every 6 months or whatever. You can tell when it needs to be changed because it starts to slow down.
Okay.
But
so that'd be a good investment.
It saves. Yeah.
Okay.
It's phenomenal, right?
Yeah, I've seen those pictures of your kids, and the one, my goodness, when you like killed carp or something.
Oh, fish, yeah.
Oh my God, so
right.
intense.
They're so funny.
And the kids look so happy. They're all like,
they love it.
Oh my gosh, they're grinning from ear to ear. I'm like, oh my gosh, that must have been such a great family day.
Yeah, we do that kind of stuff all the time. I just did another video. Because of the COVID thing, I started doing like more outdoor adventure videos, and I just decided to get more into videoing, period. Because I enjoy, because I'm always outdoors doing stuff, but I figure I should just do videos with these, right? And we did one where I have, those paint roller poles? You like screw a roller into it, and then you roll on the wall. Yeah. So I bought one of these, but it's 24 feet long. It's like telescopic. It just keeps going out and going and going. It's just like ridiculously long. And I hooked a camera up to the end of it and put it underwater. And you can see the fish down there. You know what I mean? With my GoPro. So and it's just releasing on this coming Thursday. Like it'll just be coming out.
I look forward to seeing it.
It's hilarious. Yeah, you should see the kids on that one. It's so funny.
Oh gosh, good times.
But yeah, they're always a source of comedy and and energy.
Good. Well, that's it for my questions.
Perfect. Yeah, I was gonna say thanks for doing the podcast version. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for offering it. I've wanted to do this for a while, and then when I saw on your website that this was an option, I jumped right on it. So I'm thrilled.
I appreciate that.
Thank you so much for this session. I've learned so much, and I really just feel so much more confident now to go forth and not just and get the help I need in specific ways. Because before, really, even the next month, I'm going to a seminar, and that's like, it's a supplement seminar, and I'm like, I think I need everything, Right. And I'll come home with like 10 different supplements, and this is really just, I feel so, I know it's an overused word, but empowered to really go forth with science behind me specifically for what I need. So this has been so massively invaluable, and I so appreciate you and the work you're doing. Thanks. I so appreciate everything and your website and the information and the products. I'm thrilled for this session.
Thanks, Vanda.
Thank you so much for everything you do. And I've heard you on different people's podcasts, and
sure.
I'm just so happy. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. And like I say, as soon as we get off here, I'll send an email to Keith Nichols and CC you on it. So.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.